It's time for another Dice Tower review with John Richard.
Howdy gamers, greetings from Indianapolis, Indiana, the gaming capital of the world. It's time for another board game review with me, Indiana John. Today we're taking a look at a brand new game from Vermin Games called Bright Future, which is designed by Radomir Merchev and is for 2 to 5 players. It's a post-nuclear board game. On the box it says, "Survive the horrors, find a legend." This game is set in a world where one or multiple countries have pressed the big red button and we've all blown each other up with nuclear weapons. So now we're living underground and people are trying to forage for food and supplies and medicine, and there's genetic mutations and monsters lurking around, and so you're trying to fight disease, get the things that you need, fight others if you have to, and so there's lots going on in this game. There's actually multiple scenarios you can play with this system, and so let's take a look at the setup and gameplay of Bright Future and see if we can answer that all-important gamer question, is it fun? Now, Bright Future includes 3 different scenarios inside the box. There's a cooperative scenario called Tunnel Fever, a competitive scenario called Tunnel of Power, and then a 2-player battle game that uses just some of the cards from the game that's called the Arena. We're going to focus today on the cooperative scenario, which is called Tunnel Fever, and I'll touch a little bit on some of the details of the other 2 scenarios towards the end of the review. The idea here is that we're living in some sort of post-apocalyptic, ironic bright future where everyone lives underground, and so they live in these tunnels, and somehow a disease has broken out. And so in this area here with these cool little floppy disk tokens, this represents the disease. I don't know if this represents strains of the disease or information about the disease or something like that, but these are the bad things that you're wanting to get rid of. So in order to win the game in the Tunnel Fever scenario, you're going to want to eliminate all of these codes from this pile here. Over the course of the game, they're going to get traded out for different codes, or codes might be stacked on top of the ones that already exist there. But you're trying to get rid of them. And then at the same time, though, at the end of every round, you're going to be losing population based upon the number of codes that are here. You'll actually take the number of numbers that are present here, add them up, and divide by 3. In this case, we've got 8. I can't add, that's 7, divided by 3, and that's going to be a loss of 2 population. So that's going to happen every round, and so you're trying to get rid of all these codes before you get down to 0, and if you do, then your team wins. Each player will select one of these double-sided character cards, which will be either a human or a mutant character, and you can play either the male or the female side. They're the same on both sides, but they'll have special abilities and things like that, so you'll get a player card and the token that goes along with it. You also get a hand of 6 item cards to start off with that you can then select based upon whether you have a human or a mutant character, which items you want to outfit your character with to help them in the tunnels. A turn in Bright Future will consist of 3 phases, and each player at the start of their turn is going to pick 2 of these Tunnel Fever cards and select which one they want to play. But each card has 3 sections in it: the tunnel phase, the map phase, and the infection phase, and you'll just go through those in order, and then it'll move on to the next player. So this Tunnel Fever card says that this top part here is called the tunnel phase. And it says secret passage. You're going to choose a location to play. And these are the 3 different locations. The icons represent settlements, outposts, and anomalies. And so that would be the first thing that you would do, is just do whatever the top of this card says. So in this case, we would choose a location to play. So by way of example, let's just say that we decided to choose one of these outpost cards. Now the outpost cards have mercenaries on them. And these are kind of, I guess, bad guys or just rebel guys that you can use potentially to help to fight the disease. The character that you have is either going to be human or mutant, and there's like an icon here that shows that. If you encounter a mercenary that's the same race as you, if you're a human and they're human, then you don't have to fight them. They're not considered bad guys. There's a number here, a hire number, where you can spend 3 of your resources to be able to hire them. I should mention, sorry, that in this game, sort of missed this, but these tokens here are your resources, and that represents both your life and kind of your money too. The idea being that in this bright future, as long as you have supplies and medicine, then you're going to be able to survive. So you'll start off with 30 of those in this scenario. So like I said, if you have an outpost card and it's your same race, then you can hire them for that amount. Then you'll get whatever special ability is on the bottom of the card, which could help you out. And on the bottom right, there's some icons that show what they can do to help to fight the disease. We'll talk about that in a second. So in this case, in the tunnel scenario, if I had to turn over this card, if I was a human, I could hire it. And if I was a mutant, then these are considered hostile to me, and then I have to fight them. And this little line of text right here, let's zoom in a little bit. This line here shows that if you have to fight them, this is the number of resources that you will lose when you fight them. But these icons here show if you have items that match these icons, then you can use the numbers of those icons to reduce the number of resources that you will lose. And as long as you don't lose all of your resources and die, then it's considered to be a success, even if you do get wounded. And then you would get whatever the reward is that goes along with the card. For an outpost location, the one we just did there, the reward is a little backpack, which is a item. So you would actually go down here to the item locations, and then you'd be able to select one of these items for free and put it into your supply. So that would be the reward there. After the tunnel phase is over with, and you've done whatever it says there, then you're going to move on to the map phase. And this one, we're going to go up to this part of the board here, and you're going to travel into the tunnels to look for things. And you'll pick your character token here, and then you're going to take a card from the map deck and turn it over, and it has a little map on it, and you're going to put it right there. And then you get to travel into the tunnel and can go to the locations that are listed there and interact with them. And those locations are going to line up with the different decks of cards, the settlements, the outposts, and the anomalies. So you can move around there and go and encounter things as you want to. But everything that you encounter could potentially cause you to lose resources, and so you want to be judicious about what you actually go and do on your turn. The last part of the turn is the infection phase, where there's one of three things that can happen that will progress the infection or the disease in the game. The first thing that can happen is a contamination, where you'll take a random code from the stack and then you're going to put it on the pile that has the lowest number of tiles on it. And if there's a tile, like in the beginning of the game they all have one tile, you can select where to put it. So that's going to add a code to the stack and may increase the number, or it could decrease the number of codes that are the numbers that are visible there for calculation of your death points here. Second thing that can happen is an outbreak, in which case you're going to take a random code and you're going to put it on top of the code pile that has the highest number. So in this case I would put it on top of the 3. That's going to reduce the number of codes that are visible, but it is always also going to be a 5th code that you're going to have to deal with. The third thing is a mutation, which could be good or bad. You're going to take and grab a random code, and then you're going to replace it with the code that has the lowest value. In this case, it would just be an equal trade, because I would replace that one with that one. But in some cases, you might actually improve your situation by replacing, if they were all 3s and you got a 2, then that would make it smaller there. So those are the 3 things the bad things that can happen at the end of the turn during the infection phase. There are 3 main ways to get rid of codes in this game, which is the object of the game and how you win. The first is by visiting these settlements, which you can find on the map, and then they'll correspond to these locations here. The theme is that the settlements have a doctor at each one of these locations, and you can pay that doctor in order to have them get rid of some of the disease. So, for example, in this particular settlement here, if you pay 3 resources, then the doctor will remove 1 code from the pile there that is a 1. So if you pay the doctor 3 resources, you would get rid of that code. And the same thing here, you can get rid of a 2 and you can get rid of a 3, depending on how many resources that you pay. The second way that you can get rid of codes is through the use of Mercenaries from these outpost cards. Now, when you fight an anomaly in the game, the reward that you get is a code, a random code that you pick from the pile that you then get to keep in front of you. This sort of represents information that you've gotten about the disease. And then later on, if you have hired a mercenary, because I mentioned that you can either hire or fight mercenaries, and if they're of your race, you can hire them, then they have icons on the bottom right here. Some of those icons will help you to prevent the bad things from happening at the end of the game if you discard them. But the other thing that they can do is a couple of icons will allow you to send the mercenaries into the tunnels to go and kill the people that have particular disease symptoms. So if you have those icons on your cards, you can discard your mercenary card and basically show the mercenary this piece of information. Then they're going to go into the tunnels and kill those people. So I have a 3 here, so then I would be able to go in to the tunnel here and have the mercenary pick off the number 3 and get rid of it there. So there's 2 levels of that. You can either have them get rid of one, or a more powerful ability is you can have them get rid of all of one type. So that's the second way that you can get rid of codes, is through the use of mercenaries. The last way to get rid of codes is through the use of this fourth settlement over here, which is said to have a microbiologist there. And the microbiologist has the ability to make a vaccine for the disease. And what you have to do there is you go there, and if you can give the microbiologist all of the codes that represent what is currently showing. In this case, there's a 1, 2, and 3 showing. If I give him all of those codes, then he will then take and make a vaccine, which means that I can take one of these code stacks and I can turn it over, and it effectively locks out this location so that it no longer can produce any more code. So you can't stack on top of that one. So that is going to reduce the number of total codes you can have out on the board, and again, can make it easier to win the game. So those are the 3 ways that you can get rid of codes in this game. So the game will continue in this fashion, playing through these round cards, and after everyone has taken their turn in a round, you'll add up the points on these tokens and divide by 3, and that'll determine how much population that you're going to lose. And the game will continue until either one of 2 things happens. You either get rid of all the codes and win, or you go down to 0 and you lose. And that's the way you play the cooperative scenario for Bright Future. Now, real quickly, I mentioned this game comes with 2 other scenarios, and this is the Tunnel of Power scenario, which is the competitive one. This one plays very differently from the other one in that you're not working together to try to get rid of codes. In this case, it's sort of a race where you're trying to race to be the first person to get to this location on the board called the Tunnel of Power, and then fight some things at the end. And then this represents like a combination lock or something to a door. And if you have these codes that match this particular combination, then you'll win the game. So during the game, you'll be given these cards that weren't in the other scenario called, well, they're tunnel cards, I guess, where you'll get to select, and these cards will sort of tell you which lineup you're going to get into and what position you're in. So it'll show you your first here, your second here, this person's first here, or something like that. Maybe it's like that. And you're sort of in line, kind of like jockeying for position to get access to these particular cards that you will interact with, much in the same way as the cooperative game, to get resources, eventually get the codes that you need and that kind of stuff. So all those mechanics sort of work the same way. But these players can actually fight each other as they're jockeying for position here. And you can set ambushes and mercenaries to fight against the other players and fight with you. So still items involved in that kind of stuff. It's very abstracted though as far as the way that the locations work, and you move around every turn. And the idea being that you eventually want to get to this location, fight these things here, and then have the right codes to be able to open the Tunnel of Power. And the first person to that wins. I really do prefer the cooperative scenario over this one, but this is another option that you can try. In addition, there's also a third option where you're just mainly using the item cards in the deck as almost like a Magic the Gathering sort of game where you are just directly fighting and using your items to attack each other, and you're trying to get the other person's resource total down to 0. So those are the 3 different options of the ways that you can play Bright Future. So, as you can see, there's a lot going on in this game. There's lots of cards, lots of iconography, lots of rules, lots of picky little things that are going on, and multiple scenarios that you can play. So I'll start off by saying that I really do admire this designer for putting so much effort into making a game with a lot of different options in it. And there really are just a bunch of different things that you can do, and there's a lot of detail put into this game. I can definitely tell this is a labor of love for this game, for this designer, and for the team that put together this game. I really do like the theme. I think it's pretty cool, the idea of kind of lurking around in tunnels and having to fight things. I feel like the way the theme is connected to the mechanics in this game is really well done. And even like the flavor text, I didn't really talk about this earlier, but the flavor text on the bottom of those settlement cards and mercenary cards really makes sense, and with the icons that go along with it. And so it almost has a little bit of a light RPG feel to it as you're going through here, and you're experiencing what's going on as you encounter anomalies and run into these mercenaries and stuff like that. So I get very high marks for that. Now, having said that, I will say that the learning curve for this game was way steeper than I think it really needs to be. I had a very difficult time learning the rules of this game. I don't think the rule book is put together very well at all. They have done an update to the rules that's on their website, which is a little bit better, but I still find that the organization of the rules and trying to, if you have a question about something of these picky little details, trying to find it in the rule book is very, very difficult. And in my group, when we were playing the game, we had several times where we had a question, and it became kind of a running joke of, oh, let me look it up. The the rule book's not going to tell you. And so, I think that's maybe something that just could be improved with an FAQ or a future edition of the rules, something like that. So, I think that for something with so much detail, it really needed some streamlined rules to be able to govern what was going on. Having said that, once I finally got all the rules under my hat and under my brain, I was able to teach it to my friends, and we were able to play the game relatively quickly. And I think we had a really enjoyable time with it. We played the Tunnel Fever, a cooperative version of the game, and I thought it was pretty good, and it clipped along real nicely, and we won. It was kind of an exciting win for our team. So I give this a good recommendation. I think it's a good game, but I really think that it's hindered by some overly complex rules, some iconography and graphic design that is really hard to understand when you first see it. Now, after you've played it for a little while, you'll sort of start to get it, but we still, after playing through most of a game, we're still having questions about what certain things meant on the cards. So anyway, I think that those are things that they're kind of indicative sometimes of Kickstarter games. I think that, having a lot of proofreaders on cards and things like that, and having some, some different graphic designers perhaps taking a look at it might have improved that. So, it is what it is as far as that goes. But I think that as a first effort, I think it is a very good game, and I would highly recommend the cooperative game over the competitive or the arena game. I think that's where this game really shines, as a cooperative game, and the competitive that feels a lot more convoluted and abstract, and the arena game I just don't even think is even necessary to have in there the rules for that. So. Anyway, so if this sounds interesting to you, this post-apocalyptic theme and this cooperative gameplay, kind of a light RPG feel a little bit to it, then be sure to check out Bright Future.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.